Ladies and gentlemen, there are nights in your life when the Quran doesn't just speak to you, it surrounds you. It enters the cracks of your heart that life has broken. It whispers to you that Allah has not forgotten you, that your rizq is on its way, that the delay is not a punishment but a preparation. Tonight can be one of those nights. Tonight might be the night Allah changes your tomorrow. Rizq is not just money. Rizq is opportunity. Rizq is protection. Rizq is the right people, the right doors, the right timing, the right inspiration, the right peace. Rizq is everything Allah sends to sustain your life inwardly and outwardly. And Allah tells us repeatedly in the Quran that He is the provider, He is the opener, He is the one who enriches, He is the one who sends relief after hardship. But sometimes your heart forgets that. It looks at the problems, not the one who controls the solutions. Tonight we return to Allah with verses that have changed countless lives, 3 ayat that carry the promise of expansion, forgiveness and unimaginable provision. These verses are not magic, they are divine reminders that the one who created the heavens and the earth can change your situation in a second, in a heartbeat, in the blink of an eye. The first verse invites you to seek Allah's forgiveness not because you are sinful beyond repair, but because Allah has tied His taifar to opening the gates of sustenance. The second verse reminds you that whoever places their complete trust in Allah, He will be enough for them. He will hold them when they fall, lift them when they break, and guide them when they are lost. The third verse promises that when Allah intends ease for you, nothing in the universe can stop it, not a closed door, not a missed opportunity, not a delayed response, not a person standing in your way. These verses are like keys, but a key only works when a person turns it with faith. And the person who recites them with sincerity, with a heart leaning onto Allah rather than the world, begins to see signs even before the blessings arrive. Suddenly your heart feels lighter. Suddenly you sense movement in your life. Suddenly the things that once felt impossible no longer intimidate you. That is Allah preparing you for what He has written. There are people who recited these verses on a night filled with tears, confusion and hopelessness, and by morning Allah sent clarity, unexpected help, or a path they never imagined. A job offer, a call from someone who owed them money, an apology, a door they once knocked on months ago suddenly swinging open, not because of the timing but because of Allah's timing, and His timing is never early, never late, always perfect. Sometimes the real change doesn't happen in the world around you first, it happens inside of you. Allah softens you, Allah stabilizes you, Allah strengthens you so you can handle the blessings He's been preparing for you, because rizq doesn't only require a needy hand, it requires a ready heart. And when Allah sends signs, they are subtle but powerful. A sudden increase in your patience, a random reminder to pray, a feeling that something good is coming, a conversation that aligns with what you've been praying for. These are not coincidences, these are divine signals. Allah is shifting your life piece by piece and you're watching it unfold in real time. So tonight recite these verses not as a ritual but as a conversation with Allah. Tell Him what is breaking you. Tell Him what you fear. Tell Him where you need His help. Tell Him you trust Him even when nothing makes sense. Tell Him you believe His promise more than your doubts. Because when you finally surrender, when your heart releases its tight grip on the dunya, when you stop begging from people and start calling upon Allah with certainty, that is when rizq changes. That is when destiny moves. That is when Allah says to a blessing, go to my servant and nothing can stop it. Prepare your heart tonight. Something beautiful might already be on its way to you. And when Allah decides to open a door, nothing, absolutely nothing, can keep it closed. The reality of rizq is far deeper than the way we often perceive it. Many people think of rizq only as money, wealth or salary, but in truth rizq is every form of goodness that reaches you by Allah's permission. It is the food you eat, the breath you take, the comfort you feel after a long day, the peace that settles in your heart at a moment you least expect. It is the friend who checks on you, the opportunity that appears out of nowhere, the protection from harm you never even knew was coming. And because rizq is so vast, so subtle and so deeply connected to the unseen, we must understand that what Allah has written for you will find you, but your heart must be prepared and positioned to receive it. Many people choke their own rizq not because Allah withheld it, but because their hearts were overwhelmed with fear, doubt or attachment to the wrong things. When the heart is consumed by anxiety about tomorrow, it forgets who controls tomorrow. When the heart is attached to people, it forgets who truly provides through those people. When the heart is heavy with sins, unresolved guilt, or lack of dependence on Allah, the doors of rizq feel closed even when Allah has already destined them to open. Rizq is not something you chase endlessly, it is something you attract through your relationship with Allah. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that if we were to rely upon Allah with the reliance He deserves, He would provide for us as He provides for the birds. They leave their nests hungry in the morning and return full in the evening. This example is a perfect blend of effort and trust. The birds don't sit in their nests expecting miracles without movement, nor do they flap their wings anxiously, afraid of whether they will find food that day. They go out with calmness, certainty, and natural dependence on their Creator. This is the state of heart that welcomes risky effort without desperation, trust without laziness, movement without losing peace. But many of us try to secure our risky with our hands while our hearts are trembling. We rush, we panic, we cling to people, we lose sleep over situations we cannot control, and we forget that Allah has already written our provision long before we were born. There are moments in life where you feel stuck, where the doors seem locked, where the opportunities seem distant no matter how hard you try. This is the moment many people assume their risk is blocked, but often it's not blocked, it's simply not meant to reach you in a corrupt state of heart. Allah in His infinite wisdom delays certain blessings not to punish you but to protect you. Sometimes your risk is ready but your heart is not. He wants you to be humble, to be grateful, to detach from what harms you, to soften, to seek Him sincerely. A blessing received before your heart is ready can become a test, while a blessing received after growth becomes a form of elevation. Allah teaches you patience, trust, and surrender because these are the containers needed to hold the blessings He has written for you. Without these inner qualities, risky can come and leave quickly, come and harm you, or come and distract you. And Allah loves His servant too much to let a blessing ruin them. Your heart plays a far greater role in receiving risky than your hands ever will. When a person purifies their heart with dhikr, with dua, with trusting Allah sincerely, Allah expands their provision from directions they never imagined. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw dead ends. You feel calm in situations that once terrified you. You recognize opportunities that once passed you by unnoticed. You stop depending on people and start relying on Allah, and that shift alone becomes a magnet for divine provision. The reality of risk is that it is guaranteed by Allah, but the readiness to receive it is something you cultivate within yourself through faith, surrender, and complete trust in the one who holds all things in His hands. There is a reason certain verses of the Qur'an are described by scholars as openings, because they do not just inform the mind. They unlock something deep within the heart, something that allows the flow of Allah's mercy, provision, and relief to reach a person in ways they never expected. The 3 verses connected to expanding one's risky are not random, nor are they recited out of mere ritual. They each address a specific spiritual barrier that blocks sustenance, and they each offer a divine key to remove that barrier. When these verses are recited with understanding, sincerity, and trust, they reshape a person's inner world, and that inner change often becomes the doorway to outward transformations in their life. The first verse revolves around istighfar, seeking forgiveness from Allah. In Surah Nuh, Allah promises that if you turn to Him with sincere repentance, He will send the sky pouring with blessings and increase you in wealth, children, gardens, and provisions. This verse teaches you that sin is not just a spiritual burden, it can also be a barrier to the flow of risky. When a person lives disconnected from Allah, their heart becomes cluttered with guilt, heaviness, and distraction. This clutter prevents them from recognizing opportunities, feeling calm enough to work toward their goals, or trusting Allah when life becomes uncertain. But the moment a person sits quietly, lowers their head, and whispers Astaghfirullah with sincerity, a purification begins. The heart becomes lighter, the mind becomes clearer, and the path ahead becomes easier. Sins are like knots around your risky, and every act of istighfar unties one of them. You may not see the change immediately, but begin shifting things around you in subtle, powerful ways that eventually alter the course of your entire life. The second verse is the profound reminder from Surah At-Talaq. And whoever relies upon Allah, He is sufficient for him. This verse is the anchor of the heart. It teaches you that the moment you place your full trust in Allah, not halfway, not with doubt mixed into your certainty but fully, the entire weight of your worries begins to melt away. When you rely on people, you fear their refusal. When you rely on money, you fear its loss. When you rely on your own skill, you fear your limitations. But when you rely on Allah, you fear nothing, because the one you depend on owns everything. This verse teaches that risk is not given to those who panic, it is given to those who trust. When the heart settles into tawakkul, Allah opens doors without sound, paths without struggle, and opportunities without warning. Many people have experienced situations where they had nothing left but trust, and that trust became the cause of their greatest provisions. It is not effort alone that brings rizq, it is the state of the heart behind that effort. The third verse offers a promise of ease. Allah will make for him ease after hardship. This verse reminds you that hardship itself is not a sign of deprivation, it is often the final stretch before a breakthrough. It teaches you that Allah sees your struggle, your sleepless nights, your silent worries, and your attempts to stay patient even when your heart trembles. When you recite this verse, you affirm that Allah's ease is already written, even if you have not yet witnessed it. You begin to see your difficulties differently, not as obstacles but as preparation. And when Allah decides to bring ease, it comes rapidly, effortlessly, and overwhelmingly. Rizq arrives in a form you never imagined, at a time you didn't foresee, from a direction you couldn't predict. These three verses work together. Repentance clears the heart, trust stabilizes it, and divine ease transforms everything around it. When a believer recites them with humility, reflection, and certainty, they invite the mercy of Allah into their life in ways that connect the heavens to the earth. These verses do not just change your rizq, they change you, making you a vessel ready to receive whatever Allah has written for you with gratitude, clarity, and faith. Sometimes a single moment of sincerity becomes the turning point in a person's life, a moment when they turn to Allah in weakness, in exhaustion, in desperation, and Allah responds in ways that reshape their entire reality. Real-life transformations often happen quietly, unexpectedly, and so swiftly that a person can scarcely believe how their circumstances shifted. And again, you hear people describe the same pattern. They returned to the Qur'an, they cried to Allah with a heart stripped of pride. They recited verses seeking His help, and by the next morning or within days, Allah sent a change they had been chasing for months or even years. These stories aren't about miracles in the dramatic sense, they are reminders that Allah is near, that His promise is true, and that rizq moves the moment your heart softens toward Him. There are those who spent years drowning in debt, trying every method, every job, every opportunity, yet nothing seemed to work. Then one night, they sit alone, recite these verses, and speak to Allah as though speaking to the only one who truly listens. They ask for forgiveness, declare their trust, and plead for ease. By morning, they receive a call from someone who offers help without being asked, or they find a job offer they thought they had lost, or a door they once knocked on suddenly reopens. The shift doesn't come because of coincidence, it comes because the heart finally aligned with Allah's promise, and when that alignment happens, rizq descends with a precision only Allah can orchestrate. You hear stories of people who were unemployed for months, feeling forgotten, humiliated, and terrified about the future. They turn to these verses in a moment of total vulnerability, recite them slowly, feeling every word, letting the meaning sink into their bones. That very night, they sleep with a peace they haven't felt in a long time. The next day, an unexpected opportunity appears. A company that previously ignored their application suddenly reaches out. A friend connects them to someone looking for exactly their skills. What changed? Their heart, their connection to Allah, their willingness to surrender the anxiety that had been suffocating them. Allah does not need time to send provision, He only waits for the heart to return to Him completely. You also find people who struggled with emotional burdens, heartbreak, loneliness, confusion, and they recited these verses not just for material rizq, but for guidance and clarity. And Allah gave them exactly what they needed. Someone once said, I thought my rizq was money, but Allah showed me my rizq was peace. Another said, I recited these verses for financial help, but Allah gave me strength, and that strength became the foundation for better rizq. These stories reveal that rizq is not always delivered in the form you expect. Sometimes the provision comes in the form of patience, wisdom, opportunities, or the courage to walk away from what is harming you. There are countless examples of people who witnessed overnight change. A man who had been waiting for his immigration documents for years suddenly receives approval the day after turning sincerely to Allah. A woman who had been praying for years for a child finds out she is expecting shortly after reciting these verses with full faith. A student stressed about exams finds clarity and sudden academic breakthroughs. Everyone has a different story, but the pattern remains the same. When a person finally lets go of their illusion of control and calls upon Allah with a broken heart and unwavering trust, the heavens move for them. These stories remind us that Allah is not distant. He is not watching your pain from afar. He is closer than your own heartbeat, and He responds the moment your heart turns toward Him with sincerity. Rizq does not require the whole world to shift. It only requires Allah's command, and His command is enough to change everything you know about your life. There are moments in life when something inside you feels different, even before anything around you changes. It's subtle but unmistakable. You start noticing small shifts, a calmness settling into your chest, a sense of clarity you didn't ask for, a sudden burst of hope that makes no logical sense. These are often the signs that Allah is preparing you for a change in your rizq. They are not loud, dramatic or overwhelming. They are gentle reminders that your life is quietly moving into a new phase, and Allah wants your heart to be ready for what He is about to send. Most people overlook these signs because they are expecting a dramatic breakthrough, not realizing that divine changes often begin as whispers in the heart before they manifest as realities in the world. One of the first signs is that Allah begins to detach you from things that were never meant for you. A door that once felt promising suddenly closes. A person who once felt necessary begins to drift away. Plans you held onto tightly fall apart piece by piece. In the moment, this feels painful and confusing, but later you realize that Allah was removing what would have sabotaged the blessing He was preparing to send. Sometimes you cannot receive your rizq because your hands are full of what drains you, distracts you, or blocks your growth. Allah in His mercy clears your path before He delivers your provision, even if the clearing process feels like loss. But every subtraction from your life that Allah allows is actually a preparation for an addition you cannot yet see. Another sign is the sudden increase in your spiritual awareness. You start feeling drawn to prayer. Your heart softens toward the Qur'an. You remember Allah more without forcing it. You feel guilty about things you previously ignored. You find yourself saying Astaghfirullah without thinking. These are not coincidences. These are signals that Allah is pulling you closer because He wants your heart aligned with Him before He sends your next phase of rizq. When your spiritual sensitivity increases, it means Allah is opening channels within you through which blessings can descend. A heart that is attentive to Allah becomes a magnet for divine provision. Sometimes the sign appears through discomfort. You feel restless in situations you once tolerated. A job you used to be grateful for suddenly feels suffocating. A circle of friends that once felt comforting begins to feel draining. A life you thought you wanted no longer fits you. This restlessness is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. Allah is expanding your capacity, making you outgrow your old circumstances so you can step into something greater. When Allah intends to raise your rizq, He shifts your internal comfort zone first. He makes your old environment feel tight so that you are pushed toward new opportunities you would have never sought if you remained comfortable. Another sign Allah sends an unexpected ease in areas that once felt impossible. You find clarity where you were once confused. You receive answers to questions you've been wrestling with for years. Conversations happen at the perfect time. Information reaches you just when you need it. Small tasks become smoother. Things start aligning without you pushing. This ease is a precursor to the larger ease Allah has written for your life. It is a way of showing you that He is already at work behind the scenes, rearranging circumstances in your favor. There is also the sign of intuition, a quiet inner knowing that something good is coming. You cannot explain it logically, yet your heart feels a gentle anticipation. You don't know when or how, but you know Allah is preparing something. This feeling is not wishful thinking. It is a mercy from Allah to stabilize your heart before the blessing arrives. It is a way of telling you, stay close to me, something is unfolding for you. These signs appear differently for every individual, but the purpose is always the same. Allah is preparing you, shaping you, and positioning you so that when the rizq finally arrives, you are not overwhelmed by it, but strengthened through it. He sends these signs, not to tease you, but to reassure you. Even in silence, He is working for your good. There comes a point in every believer's journey where they realize that effort alone cannot unlock what Allah has not decreed, and fear alone cannot block what Allah has already written. When a person finally understands this, their heart shifts from frantic striving to calm surrender. This surrender is not weakness, it is the greatest form of strength a human being can have. Trusting Allah fully means acknowledging that He sees what you cannot see, He knows what you do not know, and He arranges your life with more care and precision than you could ever arrange it yourself. Dua becomes different when it comes from a heart that trusts. Instead of begging in fear, you ask in certainty. Instead of worrying about how, you focus on who. Instead of doubting whether Allah will respond, you stand firmly on the promise that He always does, in the best way and at the best time. When a person reaches the state of surrender, something profound happens to the relationship with their rizq. They no longer chase outcomes with desperation.
They no longer compare the journey to others. They no longer panic when things seem delayed or uncertain. They work, but their heart is not tied to results. They plan, but their heart is not shattered when the plan changes. They take steps, but they know the destination is entirely in Allah's hands. This level of trust frees them from anxiety and opens the doors to provision in ways they never imagined. Allah loves the heart that depends on Him sincerely, and He does not leave such a heart empty-handed. Dua in this state becomes the force that moves mountains. When you raise your hands with certainty, believing that Allah is listening, believing that He is capable, believing that He is merciful, the world around you begins to shift in ways you cannot see at first. Angels record your supplication, doors begin unlocking quietly, solutions start forming, and the path ahead begins to rearrange itself. Nothing in the universe is more powerful than the dua of a heart that trusts Allah without hesitation, and many people have experienced moments where they made a heartfelt dua in a time of exhaustion or fear, and within days or even hours, Allah sent relief so precise, so perfect, that it felt as though the entire situation had been waiting for that exact dua from me. Surrender also means accepting that Allah's timing is not only perfect, it is protective. Many times, a person asks for something good, something halal, something beneficial, and Allah delays it, not because the person is unworthy, but because the blessing needs the right timing to serve them, not harm them. A job offer delayed might save you from a toxic environment. A relationship delayed might save you from heartbreak. A financial opportunity delayed might save you from offers or misusing your wealth. When you trust Allah, you begin to see every delay as a form of protection, every detour as a form of redirection, every closed door as a sign that Allah has a better one prepared. There is a kind of peace that enters the heart when it finally lets go of the need to control everything. You begin to move with life instead of fighting it. You start recognizing Allah's wisdom in moments that once frustrated you. You see blessings where you used to see burdens. You understand that nothing slips from your hands except what was never meant for you, and nothing stays away from you except what would have harmed you. This inner shift creates the perfect environment for Rizq to arrive, because Allah's blessings settle only in hearts that are ready to hold them with gratitude, humility and responsibility. A heart filled with surrender becomes a heart ready for miracles. When you trust Allah completely, you open yourself to provisions that come from directions you never imagined, at times you never expected, through means you never considered. Certainty in dua and surrender to Allah's timing do not simply change your concept. They involve a kind of divine assistance that can transform your entire life in ways you could never have planned yourself.